This was a point that Don Peoples made the other day as well, that if you look at the Fortune 500, there's very, very few African-American Black CEOs. What would you say are the steps to ameliorate that?
Well, the problem of Black CEOs is just a microcosm of the overall issues around race and corporate life and public life. And that is that there are too few opportunities for African Americans to rise to the top, to have the opportunity to serve in leadership positions. And this goes back to the origins of the issues, not just for CEOs, but for average people. And that is that we come from a history, 150, 160 years ago, the majority of white Americans believed that African Americans were less than human, believed that white supremacy was the way of the world, believed that white privilege was well earned and deserved. So we've made progress since then, but that progress has still left us with millions and millions and millions of people who harbor those same views. And we'll have to deal with that by confronting it directly.
And what would that look like, across companies? I mean, there's kind of that aspect of it. There's also the aspect of public investment and what nature that could take.
It'll take both private and public investment. At the corporate level, there are four things that we did when I was at Fannie Mae and that we think made a difference. One, make changes in your business. We made particular outreach to minority communities trying to raise the home ownership rate amongst minorities. Second, confront racism. We had a corporate judicial system that allowed for the adjudication of any grievances on a very rapid basis. The third thing we did was training. We didn't bemoan the fact that there weren't specialists involved in the secondary mortgage market. We made them. So we had entire classes for minorities in tech who had been undergraduates as liberal arts graduates, but we made our own tech workers by investing in them. And the last and maybe the most important is making sure that you audit your decisions to make sure that they don't reflect bias. Go back after you've made your compensation decisions and check to make sure that there's not implicit bias reflected in those decisions.
I'm curious what you make of the housing market today. Obviously, a lot of those gains in home ownership were eroded after the financial crisis, and some say they were unsustainable in the first place. What do you make of the landscape today?
Well, I think it's very inhospitable to not only African Americans, but to average Americans. Owning a home is the way that most people develop wealth. It is the way that for years and years and years, people have been able to pass something on to their children or pay for their education. But we learned a wrong lesson, I think, in the housing crisis. We blamed the poor and we blamed minorities for the housing crisis, when in fact the loans that went bad were predominantly loans that had been made to investors who were speculating in housing, not living in the housing, but speculating in housing. People who were taking their capital out of their housing, not people who are putting capital into housing. And so we need to rethink those policies, because when you undercut housing, you not only deprive people of a place to live, but you also deprive them of the single best way for them to be engaged in savings and investment.